All right, welcome to Pennies in the Bank. So, this is my new series, but not a whole lot is changing. The only difference now is that I'm not dieting for a show. And I'm glad that I made a commitment to try to improve my physique, to not spend the next 8, 9 months in a deficit and get shredded for a show. And although, I was really motivated to do that, things kind of changed on me, with the pandemic. And then, of course, with the WMBF, as far as the Muscle Mayhem, postponing the show till October. So there was just a little bit of waffling. And I think many of you guys can relate to having a little bit of indecisiveness. I think oftentimes we're like in the middle of, should I cut, should I bulk? And oftentimes, because of that indecisiveness, we end up spinning our wheels. That was happening to me, and I knew that I needed to commit one way or the other. So here I am with another series, Pennies in the Bank. So committed to improving my physique. That means no more dieting, no deficit. And it doesn't mean I'm going to be creating a massive surplus or anything like that, or, trying to put on excessive body weight. Because again, at my age, the last thing I want to do is to, be sitting with too much body fat. So I'm pretty comfortable right now. I would say that right now, I'm like, hovering in between 192 to 195, 196 pounds, give or take. There's some daily fluctuations there. I'm looking, 20, 25 over stage weight. So body fat percentage wise, if I had to take a guesstimate on that, I would say in the neighborhood of 18 to 20%. Energy level is good. I'm not food focused. Performance has been going really well. So plenty of energy, to train on. My recovery is really good. And, in a sense, the quality of life as far as the social aspect of it, I don't have to really, stress on that too much. It's kind of coming easy, again, because there's not that much of a food focus. The game plan, moving forward is to simply keep doing what I've always done. And that is to have a lot of intention with my training. I want to, as a priority, try to improve my overall performance, with each lift. And that means maybe the load goes up, maybe there's more reps. And with some lifts, it might mean I might need to increase the sets because the load of reps might not be the most practical way to go about the progressions. So I know there's always different perspectives out there as far as, hey, we should be doing more intense training, like using intensity as a means to progress. And then, there's other camps that say, no, we have to increase sets. But for me, in my perspective, 34 years of experience that I have as far as being in the trenches, I think I always thrive the most, and I always find a lot more success is when I take a multifaceted approach. And again, the way I kind of think of my progression is I kind of break it down into specific exercises, and I kind of ask myself, what's the most practical way to improve this exercise? What should the priority be on a specific movement? So, looking at, let's say, dumbbell chest press fly. So it's kind of a hybrid movement. The first part of the movement, it's more like a neutral grip press. And then as the dumbbells go to the top, I kind of internally rotate that, see if I can get a little more pec contraction. And also, and probably more importantly, it's a lot easier on my shoulders and a lot easier on my elbow joints. Again, having that fly pattern at the top alleviates some of the aches and pains that I have. So it's a great movement, but also thinking about progression, with dumbbells, load isn't going to be the highest priority because it's going to be super hard to try to increase the loads every week or every other week. So it's going to be a little bit more slow moving with the load. And if I did put more emphasis on the load, chances are my form isn't going to be able to match up to the speed of that progression, and the quality of the training is going to go down. Meaning, I'm probably going to have to rely on leverage. I'm going to have to rely on momentum to try to help move the load. And in a sense, that kind of contradicts, what we're doing, right? Like, we want to make sure that the muscle that we're targeting, that it's doing all of the work. So if I'm asking leverage, if I'm asking momentum to help in that, then what's the point of increasing the load? It's just like, okay, just work with loads where you can keep, the focus on that intended musculature. So I'm going to rely on rep increases. And basically for my rep range, I'm shooting for 8 to 10 reps. So I just try to, shoot for more reps within that rep range. When I can, get on the top end of my rep range pretty comfortably, then I know with a little more confidence that I can increase the load and, at the very least try to get 8 reps, like the bottom end of my rep range. Now I will say that I have been getting a little bit stuck with reps. What I've done the last few weeks is to put a little more emphasis on the load, but only on the first set. And the reason I'm only doing it on one set is just to basically just kind of slowly acclimate my body to move heavier loads. So if I can do just one set and not necessarily hitting, the low end of the rep range, but if I can get 5, 6, 7 clean reps on that first set, then I know over time I might be able to, get that first set a little bit higher. And if that happens, then the next step would be to do 2 sets with that increased load. Be able to do like 3 sets across the board with 90. I'm probably looking at a pretty long process. So I have to be super, super patient, not get too ahead of myself, not let the ego get in my way. Sometimes, the ego just tells us, bro, don't be a pussy, get after it. And from experience, when I've done that, at times it's gotten me into hot water where, aches and pains start to creep in there, and that in return slows me down even more. So in a sense, sometimes, when you're patient and you take things maybe a little bit more conservatively, it might be an illusion that you're going slower, but you're actually going faster, if that makes sense. And other lifts might be looking at load as more of the primary focus. Like, for example, on my leg press, like that one, I'm pretty confident that I can get a couple of months of good progress where, every week I'm adding 10 pounds. And I kind of think of that as like, in a sense, let's say linear progression where whatever load you start with, you're hitting, let's say, 10 reps next week. Okay, let's bump load up by 10. Reps come down to 9. Following week, you can bump 10 pounds again. Reps come down to 8. And you kind of just rinse and repeat that. And that linear progression, I kind of think of it like an analogy is you're getting on the freeway. Like you have to go fast in order to get the car up to speed to basically, merge into traffic. And, once you're on the freeway, things, you can't just continue to keep going fast because either you're going to get in a wreck or you're basically going to get a ticket. So, in a sense, that's more or less when linear progression kind of starts to slow, like it taps out, because inevitably it will slow down because you just can't continue to add load forever. That's where you kind of pull back a little bit and you shift focus, let's say from linear progression to now I'm going to go double progression, where I'm going to focus more on increasing reps. So less frequent load increases, but looking for more rep increases. And that, again, analogy of the car on the freeway would be, trying to merge over into the faster lanes. You're collecting, let's say, really good mileage there. You're traveling in the fast lane and going a good distance. Then inevitably, that's going to slow down, right? And that means your car's starting to run out of gas. You got to take the car off the freeway. And in a sense, that can be deload, or it can mean I'm going to switch exercises out. And, if anything, it's kind of like a tune-up too. Hey, let's change exercises so that way, I'm not beating the car up too much and I'm not collecting, any type of repetitive use injuries. So, again, That's just, some of the approaches that I take with, some of my movements. And again, it kind of just depends on the exercise at hand. As far as my exercise selection is concerned, if the criteria for me is, I try to go with exercises that give me the best mind muscle connection, like where I can feel the musculature working really well and I can maintain really good form from start to finish, and exercises that I thoroughly enjoy and are safe for me to do. That's typically how I roll with exercise selection. So anytime things just aren't matching up with that, that's where I tend to make a change with exercise selection. And I think what I'll do in this series is maybe start to just get a little bit more nuanced and detailed within my training. I think it's always kind of interesting to kind of see how people do things and the reasonings behind it. And again, I think with the amount of experience that I have with myself, being that I've been training for going on 35 years now, I think it's very rare that you see someone with the amount of experience that I have offering up, the context and the whys behind everything. Not 100% sold that I'm correct with everything, because obviously we're human. We make mistakes and we have, varying perspectives. And, sometimes when I get comments or questions, it really does help for me to take a little bit deeper look, or it actually helps me to see other perspectives, and I might, help me to think a little more critically and like, you know what, maybe that person's idea or, them challenging me to something, maybe there is a better way that I can do it. So, and that's one thing that I've learned over the years too, is that trial and error is actually how I've been able to improve. I think sometimes, we tend to gravitate more towards the external sources of information, like the more generalized sources of information, and we kind of think like, okay, that's the only way or the correct way to do things. Sometimes that can be restrictive, and I've learned to at times get outside of that box, and to experiment with things that might not be necessarily looked as like, hey, that's probably not a good thing to do, but I tend to kind of ignore, as long as it's not unsafe. I'll experiment with things, run it, see what I get from it, and see if it's a positive or a negative. And I usually find better answers that way. And then from there, I can make changes to keep bettering myself. That's kind of more or less, what I'm looking to do with this. Probably one last good off season, being that I am going to be pushing 50 years old, I'm not 100% certain I can make progress, but hey, I won't know unless I get in there and try, right? So trial and error to actually see if a dude at my age with as much training experience that I have, if I can in fact continue to see a little bit more progress. And when I get comments like I got on my last project 3550 video, basically someone said, you're crazy if you think someone at 50 is making natural gains. Laugh out loud. Test levels probably drop 50% what they were 25 years ago, but he magically makes gains. Sure. So that type of comment, it's like fuel to the fire. Like it just really it gets me going. Like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to say a whole lot. I'm just going to basically put the work in and let the work speak for itself. When I look at my physique, let's say from the age of 35, where, I did pretty good at that point. I'll admit, I wasn't the best at, let's say, preserving lean tissue as far as my contest preps. But still, going from the age of 35 to age 48, I think improving my overall training approach, improving my dieting skills, improving, presentation, posing and all that, improving, peaking and all that. I made some pretty good improvements from the age of 35 to 48. Track record speak for itself, and moving forward, if I continue to do, the same things and improve upon them, then who's to say that I can't continue to make progress? I'm just going to focus on the big rocks. Big rocks are training with intent. Be progressive with my training, make sure that I'm recovering. So, having planned rest days, which I think are totally undervalued in today's day and age. I think in the today's day and age, it's all about the volume. We got to do more and more and more and more. Well, sometimes I think a lot of our demand goes up so high that we just don't have enough supply to support it. And rest days are a key component in lowering that overall demand down. So I definitely make rest days an equal part of my process. Making sure that I'm on top of nutrition, like making sure I'm getting at least a gram of protein per pound of body weight, and making sure I have enough food coming in to support my body weight and to support my training, right? We need enough fuel to power that training. So I want to make sure that I'm, covering my bases there, along with making sure that, food sources are decent, where I have good variety, like I'm getting, enough micronutrients in there, fiber intake. So that's really key as well. And making sure I'm staying hydrated. So even being slightly dehydrated can impact performance, and more importantly, it can impact overall mood. And I want to feel good when I'm in and out of the gym. So staying hydrated is pretty key for me. And sleep, making sure that I'm getting 7 to 8 hours a night. Last night I slept really good. I actually got like closer to 9, so I feel really good, and probably why I'm talking so much right now. But the sleep, so important. I think that too at times can be undervalued by some. Staying up late playing video games, or just on the IGs, the social media. You're choosing to do those things versus getting your rest, which is again so valuable. So that's super key for me. And I think too, just as far as overall stress levels, just really being aware of where I'm at as far as like my stress, like where's stress, where's anxiety, and in a sense, a little bit of self-talk and keep me as cool as the other side of the pillow. I think that has a lot to do with being able to just keep an overall good mood, stay upbeat, good energy, have good performance, that type of thing. So I try to stay aware of that and do a good job with that. The last thing was just being patient, having trust in my process, and having fun. I think that is huge. Like enjoying what I'm doing and not getting, overly analytical, or like, that old saying, paralysis by analysis, like just not over analyzing to a point where it becomes a stressor itself. So as long as I'm putting the work in, let time do its thing. Because in time, if I'm doing those things, the progress just tends to roll. So I'm having confidence that, I'll be able to do that. So I'm going to leave it here. I appreciate you guys watching. Any questions, any advices, feel free to drop those below. And I'll do my best to engage, and we'll see if we can help each other out. All right. So I'll leave it there. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll talk with the next one.